Hello, it's time for me to talk politics again. I know the last few months, been doing more food taste test reviews than political jargon, but here I am, and as you can see, I come to you from a new bedroom, aka new studio. Let's just say the way things ended with the previous studio / bedroom came as a surprise to me. I was hoping to stay at previous location for a little bit longer until one or two things happen, either starting early 2023 I have another job because I graduated college in 2022 and make more money and be able to afford a place of my own, or probably after graduating college, getting the better job and everything, finding me a nice woman to settle down with and get married and get a place together. But anyway, those are in the future right now, so let's talk about the present. And I will talk to you about what's been going on with the North Carolina Republican Party. Today I'm going to talk to you about the proceedings of the Winter Executive Committee meeting that occurred on December 4th of 2021. According to the State Plan of Organization, we are required to meet twice as a state executive committee. Once always happens after the convention in June, right after the convention. In other words, you have the convention for Friday, Saturday in May or June, and then Sunday, the day after, you have the executive committee meeting that morning. And then we have one other meeting usually occurring almost always. You can almost set your calendar every year. Almost always will occur the first Saturday in December. And sometimes, depending on what things are going on, you might have more. If there's a lot of things going on, you might have 4 state executive committee meetings. And actually, at this past year's convention, there was a proposed change to go from 2 meetings to 4 meetings a year. I was in favor of that because I thought more meetings with the state party is good for transparency, it's good for communication. It's just good to see your fellow activists around the state a little bit more often than twice a year. But it got shot down. Problem was, not surprisingly, people that live in the far west part of the state and people that live in the far east part of the state had concerns with driving long distances and all that stuff, travel and hotel, and of course, no problem for me because I live in Greensboro. The meetings are almost always in Raleigh. If they're not in Raleigh, they're in Charlotte, usually within an hour and a half drive from me. Okay, so from my now formerly Northwest Greensboro, now South Greensboro studio, I will go ahead and give you the nice little summation of the yesterday's executive committee meeting. And we started the meeting pretty much right on time at 2:01. It's supposed to start at 2 o'clock, but 2:01 is pretty good because in years past there's been like a 10 or 15 minute, even 25-minute delay. There was a little bit of drama right at the beginning because quorum, which is the number of required members you need to have a meeting, the quorum for yesterday's meeting was 115. Guess how many we had? 117. Yeah, so guess what? I was the difference, and one other person out there, if you're on the North Carolina GOP state executive committee, yeah, you and I were the difference in whether or not quorum was made, right? I mean, if we had 3 less people, we wouldn't been able to have the meeting. Okay, so our meeting chairman was a young fellow, just a couple years older than me, named Brad Overcash, who is out of Gaston County. He currently, I believe, is the finance chair on the Central Committee, State Central Committee. In the past, he's also served as the 10th Congressional District Chair. And we also had Russ Ferguson, General Counsel, Miriam Chu, Secretary, and of course, after those people were assigned, we had the Pledge of Allegiance and Word of Prayer. So the very first order of business was the chairman's report from Michael Watley. And the biggest factor in his report was that he was reporting on very strong fundraising throughout the state party. The email contacts around the state, that's how many people are receiving official emails from the state Republican Party, went from 200,000 over the last year, went from 200,000 to 400,000. Very impressive, double, right? And our donor base around the state is 23,000 donors. Now, in a state where the population is over 10 million now, 23,000 does not sound like a lot, but still, it's something. It's something that we as a state party can grow a little bit. But we're tops in the country for digital fundraising. And also it should be noted that one of the biggest promises from Michael Watley when he took over the chairmanship back in 2019 was he wanted to have better communication with the county parties to the state party. Better communication between the two. And, we got 76 out of 100 counties on Nation Builder. Now, what's Nation Builder? Nation Builder is essentially it's a political website program, and it really helps to streamline information, about who your county chairman is, and what events are happening in your county, where you have your meetings, etc., etc. But this is provided free from the NCGOP. So, if the 24 counties that do not participate in Nation Builder, it's probably because of, one, you're in a very unorganized county. A lot of these counties are a lot of your very rural, small counties out in the mountains or out in eastern North Carolina that only have like 5,000 people in the county, maybe. Or it's just you've had your own website for years and years, and you're one of these people, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Fine, Okay, growth in the party. The gap. North Carolina has always been a state where there's been more Democrats on the voter rolls than Republicans, but that gap has been shrinking over the last 10 years or so. Actually, in Florida, it's now, Florida is also another state, good example of the gap, Democrats to Republicans narrowing. And actually, a couple months ago, this past summer, Republicans took over as the dominant party affiliation in Florida. I don't know about dominant, but Florida and North Carolina are very evenly split. You have like a third Republican, third Democrat, third unaffiliated. Florida's like 35% Republican and 33% Democrat, etc. But get this, over the last 13 months, since the end of the 2020 election, we've had 30,000 new registrants to the North Carolina Republican Party. And one thing that the party's going to really start hammering home is we actually, in North Carolina now, you can actually go online to register to vote. Because in the old days, you had one of two options. You could register to vote, thanks to the 1993 motor voter law signed by President Clinton. You could, when you went to the DMV to transfer, your driver's license from whatever state X to North Carolina, and your license plates, etc., to North Carolina, you could also register to vote at the same time. Or you can register to vote through, go down to your Board of Elections office in whatever county you're at and do that. Or you could be at some sort of festival, or there might be a table outside Walmart by a political organization to get people registered to vote too. But now you can actually just go right online. You only have to get dressed or nothing. Is that pretty cool? Another thing they're trying to do is identify unaffiliated voters and Democrat voters who actually vote majority Republican. And they actually tried this out in Greene County, which is a rural county just west of Greenville, out in the east part of the state. And they found out that they did this through a robocall program, that 7% switched their party affiliation either from unaffiliated to Republican or Democrat to Republican. And that's something that's probably going to continue, because with any kind of robocalls you make, there's always going to be the chance that a person might want to participate, but they did not get your phone call because they were not able to answer the phone. And then, of course, there's some people on robocalls who just are rude as hell, right? And just, don't want to participate to begin with. But that's a whole nother topic. Okay. But did you know that when you have a person that is newly registered to the Republican Party, the chances of them voting in the very next election is 86%. That is why voter registration is super, super important. It's a key component to winning elections, okay? Think about this. 86%. And if they're a newly registered Republican, yeah, they're probably very, very likely to vote the party they just registered for. It's very unlikely that they're gonna they registered to vote in June as a Republican. The election is November. November comes around, they're like, you know what, I'm going to vote for the Democrat. Yeah, no, that's just one of those things that just, hardly ever happens. Right. Okay, so now we talk, Michael Wiley talked about election integrity. This was a huge talking point as far as the reaction of the results of the 2020 election. Now, I do think we need better integrity in elections, absolutely. However, you're not going to find me like some people in my party, unfortunately, want to keep saying that the 2020 election was lost entirely because of the voter fraud, or it was lost entirely because of, election shenanigans. Now, I do believe that there should be some blame on election integrity for the results of the 2020 election, but it should not be the end-all be-all, okay? There were a couple other factors to why Trump lost, and it was not entirely voter fraud. There are two biggies why Trump lost, and sorry about the sidebar, but it's important, okay? One reason was he blew the first debate. he turned the first debate. The first debate was when, like, right after Labor Day or mid-September. And in a lot of states, I mean, they start early voting, like, right after Labor Day, early September. So people were already voting when the first debate happened. And what Trump should have done was he should have gone in. He should have been respectful, decent, followed the debate rules. Now, following the debate rules does not mean letting the moderators get away with breaking the rules, what they sometimes do, but it means following the rules. When the rules are not followed, you can call the person out. But still, just go in there and say, look, this is what I accomplished during my first term, and just keep reminding people of what the good things he did. Instead, he just argued with Biden, just name called, and he blew it with the first debate. You know, and in states like Minnesota that have very early voting, and some other upper Midwest states that are very crucial in these elections these days, that was a key factor to why Trump lost. Another reason why Trump lost was he was not able to, and this is a hard one, but he was not able to bring the country together. Now, did Obama bring the country together? No, he did not. Has Joe Biden brought the country together? Certainly not. But I believe that, you know, if Trump could have gone in there and talked about the economy and the wonderful things he did for the economy, right? And kind of create this Reagan-esque, it's morning again in America. Instead of just going, you know, on the campaign trail and consistently name call and just, you know, feel kind of bully-like, that turns off a lot of independent and moderate voters. Okay, that's two big reasons why Trump lost. Okay, no, it was not 100% because of voter fraud, but I will say though that it was partially to blame because there were some shenanigans going on where in Atlanta, in Detroit, in Phoenix, in Milwaukee, these are all big cities and battleground states, they were not able to have poll observers or even lawyers represent either political party in there. In North Carolina, they were able to do this. Big, huge accomplishment for Michael Whatley and his leadership for the NCGOP. And the thing is that North Carolina, we have voter machines that count votes, but they're not hooked up to the internet, which is a good thing because they're not able to communicate with the internet, cyberspace, and Russia, and all that collusion stuff. But also, in North Carolina, when you vote, you fill out a paper ballot. So guess what? You're there. Then the election officials are able to do an audit. They're able to, the paper ballots obviously give a paper trail, and you're able to have accurate results. Okay. And basically, the thing that I want you to come away with this little discussion of voter integrity is that the media, most of the media, unfortunately, most of the television news media is out there saying that Republicans are suppressing the vote or they're making it harder to vote, but that is not true. Now, what myself and my fellow Republicans are doing is we want to make it easier for you to vote, but harder to cheat. What's wrong with that? Okay. Another thing about election integrity is that Chairman Whatley is putting together a ballot protection team. And their responsibility is you're going to have some voters go to the polls. It could be during early voting or it could be during the election day. But you're going to have people who they get out of their cars, they start walking, and then they say, nah, I'm not sure about this. Is my vote really going to count? Is this election rigged? And the goal of the ballot protection team is for them to give these voters a palm card to these voters that are questioning the legitimacy of the election. They can take their smartphone, scan it, and then it'll have, if you see voter fraud, call such number and that sort of thing. And then Michael Whatley hit on the state convention. Last year, we had a record-breaking, by the way, this was digital and in person, people that were at the convention site in Greenville, as well as people that were just tuned into the convention via the internet. There was 1,636 attendees, and I believe that's the highest number we've ever had for a convention. That was a pretty big increase, because in 2019 we had 1,300. So that's a pretty sizable increase there. You can do your own math as far as percentage, by the way. If you don't know how to do that, Google it, right? And so if you look at the $75 basic fee, and that's the fee if you want to attend the convention and just go to the business sessions. That's what I do year after year, right? Because at the end of these business sessions, they're long, and I'm ready to go back to the hotel room and just be by myself and, have some good food delivered to me. But you take 1,636 times it by the $75 delegate fee. The party is already making $122,700, right? Just on, and I mean, that's assuming that, probably half of that is paying a lot more than $75. They're doing $350 dinners and package fees. But my hope is that the basic fee for the convention stays at $75 for a long time. Because the state party makes a lot of money. Buku bucks on the state convention. And in total for the state convention, after you add all the money that they earned, split the dinners and everything, they were up over $800,000. So my hope is, again, $75, it should stay, the delegate fee should stay there for a long time, at least for the next 20 years or so. I mean, 10 years ago, the delegate fee was like $35, and then now it's been $75 for about 7 years, but still, I mean, from 2011 to 2014, more than doubled. So hopefully it does not double again for another 20, 30 years. And next year's convention is going to be in Greensboro. Yay! Sleep in my own bed, save money on lodging. Sometime in May. I think the date on that is the 19th through the 22nd, but that has not yet been 100% set in stone just yet. Then we heard from the vice chair, Susan Mills. She is trying to encourage people to run for school board. That's huge, because talk about critical race theory and books that are sexually explicit, even some that they're very pornographic in nature. Unfortunately, in some public schools, there's a big controversy in Wake County right now with pornography in the books, unfortunately. And the thing about running for school board, she says you do not have to be a parent to run for school board. I mean, you can be, or a grandparent. You can be me. I could run for school board. I'm not going to. At least not in 2022. We'll see in the future, maybe. But it can be anybody. You just need to be concerned about the future. I say anybody. Well, if you're a registered child sex offender, not a good idea. And I'm serious. No, it's not a joke. I'm very serious about that. I mean, if you're, if you have a lot of baggage of that nature, no, do not run for school board. Okay, and then Michael Whatley again was on the podium, and he talked about there's a question about renovations. $25,000 being spent this past year for renovations of the headquarters. One fellow executive committee member asked, why? What is the $25,000? What kind of renovations? And he says for this new TV/podcast studio. And the thing they could do, you can, have people, who knows, maybe I could record podcasts from there. I only live like an hour, 10 minutes away from the headquarters in Raleigh. But you can also do, actually a place to do live shots for Fox, CNN, MSNBC, any member of the media. There's a big political story out in North Carolina to say, Chairman Michael Whatley is standing by at the state Republican headquarters in Raleigh. Whatley, what do you got to say? Then there was a question about an increase in the payroll for workers, and there was some back and forth between Whatley and I believe it was, she asked a lot of questions at the convention. I believe it's a young lady from Caldwell County asking about why are we over budget on some things and conservative on some things. Then the budget was approved. There was a motion for approval by Harvey West of Washington County, and seconded by Linda Petroff of Forsyth County. And let me say this about Harvey West. Mr. West last summer had a heart attack. He is in his early 50s, and he's been married to the NCGOP legend of Kim Cotton West for the last, I believe, about 12 years now. But Harvey had a heart attack last summer, and took me a little bit by surprise. Of course, Harvey, lives way out in the east part of the state, only like less than an hour from Nags Head, the Outer Banks. Lives like 4 hours away from here, so I hardly ever see him. But I am very happy that he was back at this executive committee meeting, and he's back participating in the party again, because he's done some, he's one of these people who you talk about couples that get married, and some of them, both people are very political already, and there's some where one person is political, the other person's not. But in this case, Kim Cotton West has always been active in the NCGOP, and then about 12 years ago she married Harvey, and now Harvey is active. Harvey is the chair of the 1st Congressional District for that, and Kim, don't know what she's up to currently, but I believe 2019 to this past year, she was the chair of the district county chairman's organization, and she's all done a lot of training workshops with the state party as well. So, but it's great to see and hear from Harvey West, and I'm glad to see he's doing well. And then we heard from Will Connect, who is, I believe, the assistant finance chair on the state central committee. And he said the average online donation, get this will boggle some of your minds, because a lot of people think that people that donate to a state political party, a lot of people think these are millionaires and billionaires, and get this, the average online donation is right around $20. That's it. So it turns this whole narrative that the Republicans are the party of the rich right on its head. And Will Connect even said it, like, well, we're supposed to be the party of the rich. Well, no, we're the party of working folks. And, these donations, I mean, you get people that donate $1, $5, maybe some of them donate $75 or $100, but still $20 for an average donation is nothing. And yet, of course, I'm not saying, I mean, it's a low amount, but these add up. And, if every Republican out there gives $1 or $2, I mean, think about it. If every single Republican in America gave $1 or even $5, that could make a huge difference in the outcome of elections. And I know there are some who say, well, voting is the most important thing. And voting is very important. I mean, because the object of the game is to have more votes than the Democrats, right? But in order to get voting, you have to encourage people to vote for a candidate, and you do that by spending money on advertising and and other methods of promoting your candidate and so forth. Then we heard a report from the RNC committeewoman Keisha Weinberger, who I will say is doing a fabulous job. Because in years past, North Carolina has had some representation on the Republican National Committee that has been very, that has always just towed the party, that has been lockstep with the establishment, and that has always been, if a Republican does something in violation of the Republican platform, we need to be silent about it, not say anything. We always need to be positive with the Republicans. I do believe in Reagan's 11th commandment that thou shalt not speak ill of a fellow Republican. However, Reagan also believed that if a Republican fails to live up to the principles of the party, then you should call him out. And Keisha Weinberger did just that a couple days ago when we had it was Congressman Greg Murphy, Congressman Patrick McHenry, and Richard Hudson, and maybe one more, but I know it was those three who voted for legislation so the government could build a database of who people were and what their vaccination status was. And Keisha Weinberger immediately went on Facebook and said, this is wrong. This violates the privacy, freedom, not to mention potential HIPAA violations too. So, and she's always been, even before she was RNC committeewoman, she spent several years traveling around the state. I mean, there will be times when this weekend she was down Jacksonville, and the next weekend she was up in Boone, and the following weekend she was in Greensboro, and et cetera, so a very hardworking woman, very principled, and definitely not afraid to call the kettle black. Also not afraid to say when a Republican does something that violates the principles of the party, she's going to call him out on it. And that has not always been the case. So she's definitely, Miss Weinberger is definitely a huge asset for the conservative movement here in North Carolina. But the biggest thing that Weinberger mentioned in her speech yesterday is there's starting to be a little bit of chatter about the 2024 National Republican Convention. And she says that that's really going to be the purpose of the next RNC meeting, which is going to be between February 1st and February 4th in Salt Lake City. So right around that time we should start to know. I don't think we're going to know where the official convention site is, but we're at least going to know who the candidates were. And I think she said that she expects North Carolina to be a candidate. Because remember, in 2020, Charlotte was supposed to host the Republican National Convention. And 2 years before that, in the summer of 2018, Charlotte was picked as the host city. So by next summer, we're going to know who the host city is going to be. Now, of course, because of what happened like a few months before the convention was supposed to happen, COVID happened, and that threw everything out. So it would be nice if Charlotte could host the convention, have an opportunity to host the convention, but also you look at where the convention has been held, and it's been a long time since the convention has been out the western part of the state. So I would look for North Carolina's going to be a candidate, but I think Phoenix and Las Vegas and possibly Denver, although Colorado's getting awfully blue, but we'll see what happens. Next, we had a report from the General Assembly from the fabulous State Senator Joyce Krawick. And she mentioned there were some great things in the budget. We're now going to have a rainy day fund of $4.25 billion. That's great. And the income tax rate by 2027 is going to drop from 5.25% down to 3.99%. And I did a little math, and I asked myself, when could North Carolina possibly get down to a 0% and be the 10th state to have a zero income tax? And my answer was around about 20 years from now, 2042. And of course, this goes back to former state GOP chairman Claude Pope. And when he was the chair from 2013 to 2015, he always talked about we need to be patient with the Republicans and know that the Democrats had ruled our state for 110 years. Then in 2011, the Republicans took control of the state legislature for the first time in 110 years. And he says it's going to take some time to see some real conservative results. But 10 years later now, we're starting to see some, the income tax used to be 5.75, and now 10 years later, it's almost dropped in half. So, but yeah, that would be the 30-year majority. Now, when I heard this for the first time, I was like, be patient with the Republicans. What about the Democrats? They're always active fighting, and they rammed through Obamacare, but now I've gotten to see that the goal should always be that we should visualize a day when North Carolina is just like Texas, right? Jobs all over the place, 0% income tax, and also a lot of other lower taxes too. So, and then another way to get more jobs here is to eliminate the corporate income tax. And according to Senator Krawick, that should be out of here by 2031. Right now it's at 2.5%, which is one of the lowest rates in the country, but still it could always be better, it could always be zero, and that's really going to help economic development in our state. Then we heard from Dale Falwell, the great treasurer Dale Falwell. He gave a Council of State report, and he sort of dropped a bombshell on everybody when he mentioned that Michael Bloomberg, according to the Wall Street Journal, Michael Bloomberg is going to give $750 million to the charter school movement. So you could say, yeah, Michael Bloomberg is all over the place politically. I mean, he's for gun control. He instituted the, you can only buy, if you want to buy a fountain drink, it can only be 16 ounces. But yet he's also apparently, because yeah, this is, I don't know if I quite believe Michael Bloomberg, but almost $1 billion to create charter schools. Wow. So he's for gun control, he's for the government telling you what you can eat and drink, but he's also for school choice. Who knew? Dale Falwell also serves the State Banking Commission chair, and he has come out and he's been always against this proposed rule by the IRS to spy on people's bank accounts, and he doesn't know if it's going to be $600 is the threshold or it's going to be $10,000. But if this rule goes into place, he says it's going to do a lot of harm. It's going to drive more people to underground economy, to work under the table. Could lead to lost tax revenue for roads and highways, schools, paying firefighters and police. It's going to cause more people in our country to be unbanked or financially illiterate, and that's all. You ever heard the Dave Ramsey show? Dave Ramsey has been around for 30 years, and he going to be around for probably another 30 years because of all the financial literacy we already have in our country with credit card debt and that sort of thing, and to promote people to get their money out of the banks, well, that's another thing too. Falwell also, he manages $248 billion with a B, $1 billion of money. That's 10 times as much as the state budget. And he also said that it's been reported that North Carolina has the most efficient pension plan in the world. And then Carolyn Justice, who's a former legislator from Pender County out on the coast, made a comment about Dale Falwell's glasses. And she said, they're from Dollar... Dale Falwell goes, what about my glasses? And she says, they're from Dollar General. And he replies back with one of the best lines I've ever heard from a politician. He says, you know what, Carolyn? I'm the only state treasurer who lodges at the Econo Lodge. And right after he said that, I said to myself, what a guy. That is exactly the kind of politician or person that I want to represent me as state treasurer. And who knows, maybe he can be governor someday. That would be really cool too. And I don't know if I ever tell a story. When I was 10 years old, I started getting into politics a little bit. And back in 1996, I was 10 years old. I was starting to follow the Republican primary for who would face Bill Clinton in the election. And my favorite person, my dad and I watched a little bit of I believe there was a candidate forum one night, like on CNN or something. But one of the candidates on the stage was Steve Forbes. And I really like Steve Forbes. And my dad showed me an article one day he talked about his daily life. And one of the things he always liked to do is he always liked to go to Denny's and read a copy of the USA Today newspaper. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Likes to eat at Denny's, a nice, low-cost breakfast. Instead of being like Steve Forbes is one of the richest people on the earth, by the way. But still, it just spoke to me that a rich person who has middle-class habits, instead of a rich person who eats caviar and lobster every day. For breakfast, at least. Okay, so now Buck Newton, who is the chair of the Election Integrity Committee, mentioned that there's going to be workshops held around the state, physically and virtually, regarding election integrity. Just putting that out there. Watch for that on the state GOP website. Then we heard from Kate Wilt, who was the newly elected chair of the State Republican Women's Federation. There's going to be the next quarterly meeting is down at Atlantic Beach in February. And then we heard from the chair of the Republican Men, Tyrus Tatum. And his goal is to him and Bob Pruitt, the previous chairman, are trying to reach out to state party organizations around the Southeast to try to get them to create their state men's Republican group and then bring that to the RNC so we can have a national Republican men's group. Because for many years, the women have had a national Republican women's group, so why not the men, right? And then we heard from Emily Stack from the Young Republicans. She was subbing for the chair, Catherine Whiteford, who was down at the Mount Pleasant, North Carolina Christmas parade on a parade float, highlighting her campaign for the state legislature. But Emily Stack wanted to announce there's an awards dinner on December 11th. One of these days, one of these years, I'm going to try to get to this awards dinner they have every year in December. It's just, every year I got something else going on, It's just, one of these, I'm going to go to this awards dinner before I age out of the Young Republicans. And that's going to be in a little over 4 years from now. So sometime before March of 2026, I'm going to try to go to a YR awards dinner. And y'all can hold me to it, okay? Please, yeah. But Emily Stack mentioned that the YRs campaigned in 10 municipal elections, and they won 8 out of the 10 municipal elections. They also conducted 3 deployments to Virginia to help go door to door in the Virginia governor's race. And then we heard from Zoe Hedlund of the College Republicans. She mentioned that college Republicans are making gains around the state. They now have 65 dues-paying members at Campbell University in the quaint little town of Buies Creek, North Carolina. Then we have Appalachian State with 45, followed by UNC Wilmington with 32. Then we heard from the TARS, the Teenage Republicans, and Tucker Coons of Harnett County. Did you know that right now in the state of North Carolina there are 400,000 people aged 15 to 17? Well, half of those are going to be eligible to vote in next year's election. 200,000. Now, why is that number important? Well, Roy Cooper got reelected with 248,000. So the teenage Republicans are definitely trying to make inroads with this group of 200,000, because that can really help us in these maybe not so much the federal election, but more so the state and down ballot races, definitely. Now, they had a goal this past year to increase membership by 20%, and they whacked it out of the park. They had 36% increase in membership, and one more big accomplishment is they were just ranked the number 1 most engaged group among teenage state Republican parties in the country. Now, it has not been easy. It has not been easy to grow the TARS. The biggest thing they run into is opposition from principals. In other words, school administrators. But the TARS did a little research, homework, and they found this thing called the Equal Access Code that says if public schools are getting public dollars from the federal state government, then public schools must recognize political and religious groups, have to be recognized as clubs at these schools. Okay. Then we heard from the chair of the Frederick Douglass Foundation, Clarence Henderson, who's reaching out to these minority communities. One of the biggest things they're doing is they're doing some community service in these communities. But Clarence Henderson had the best quote of not just the whole day, but honestly one of the best quotes I've ever heard. He said, "Being angry at someone for the color of their skin is equal to being angry at the God who created them. Let that sink in for a moment. I'm going to read it one more time. Being angry at someone for the color of their skin is equal to being angry at the God who created them. And then we heard now from the National Republican Hispanic Assembly. They've just been in existence here in North Carolina for 1 year. That's led by a young man by the name of Juan Pleites. They have 3 chapters right now, one in Pitt County, one in Mecklenburg County, and then one down in New Hanover County. And Hispanics are very encouraging. We saw a lot of this. Hispanics are leaving the Democrats way behind and hugging and embracing the Republicans in huge margins. This was big right along the Texas border, and also it was really big in Miami-Dade County in Florida, because Hillary Clinton won Miami-Dade by like 30%. Joe Biden won Miami-Dade by only 7%. So they're definitely making inroads. And that's big because Republicans have struggled in recent years with they've struggled with upper class wealthy whites. So if you can build a coalition among I hate to use the word poor, but working class white voters, and then Hispanics, blacks, you get those numbers. You bring a few of the wealthy whites back into the party, and you can win. And get this. Now, Glenn Youngkin won the governorship of Virginia by, I believe it was about 2.5 percentage points. Guess how much he won the Hispanic vote by? This is a great number. Glenn Youngkin won Hispanics by 12%. 12%. That's huge. Wow. Okay, now at this point in the executive committee meeting, we were supposed to go to unfinished business, and there were 15 resolutions. All the resolutions from the state convention did not get heard at the business session and did not get heard at the executive committee meeting last June. Thanks, Senator Ralph Heiss, you nincompoop, you. Yeah. And unfortunately, these 15 resolutions were not heard at yesterday's executive committee meeting because you fool! Mr. Jonathan Fletcher of Gaston County said something along the lines of, Mr. Chairman, considering that we've heard from all the party officers and we've gone through all the agenda, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. And so made a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, pretty much everybody said aye, except me. I just was silent and befuddled. At 4:16 p.m., after a 2 hour and 15-minute meeting, which should have been a little bit longer. Come on now, let's hear these resolutions. Gosh darn it. The meeting was over. And resolutions, still have 15 resolutions. And yes, I brought my red book, by the way. 15 resolutions. That's, how many pages is that? About 13 pages worth of content, right? Still are not heard. And what's ironic is that the chair of the resolutions committee, who I'm sure was pretty pissed off at this moment, later that day he gets an award, a Hall of Fame award for the 9th Congressional District. Dr. Philip Stevens gets the Hall of Fame award So, at least there's a little bit of resolution with Dr. Philip Stevens, but I don't know what's going to happen in these resolutions, because in my, decade or so of being involved in the North Carolina Republican Party, this particular thing has never happened to where you, at the end of the convention, and then at the end of the state convention executive committee meeting, then the December executive committee meeting, you still have resolutions from the June convention that have not been heard yet, that have not seen the light of day. So, are these going to get kicked over to the 2022 convention, and then we'll maybe be able to hear them then? Are they going to throw out these resolutions and start over again with new resolutions? Or are they going to do the 15 resolutions plus a bunch of new ones? Like, next year we might have 30 resolutions, which actually, if you look at the convention, what's supposed to happen next year is every 4 years we have a convention where there is not an officer election. So we have a lot more time that we can do for business. So I'm hoping and I'm praying really hard that maybe, could it be possible, as Joe Pesci and Mike Cazavini would say, could it be possible that we can actually do the resolutions a year late. A year late, but better late than never, right? Well, anyway, that's going to do it for this video commentary. If you're still watching this video, thanks for sticking with me for the last 57 minutes. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.